Geraldo Rivera went on HuffPost Live, and he made a strange point about racism. Let's listen.
You talk about liberals and conservatives as if they were sort of equally ideologically and self-contained camps. Do you fit into either one of those?
No, I'm a militant moderate. I borrow from both. For instance, I am, as I mentioned, immigration reform, gay marriage, and abortion are all things that's why I voted for Barack Obama 3 times. On the other hand, I hate Benghazi. The Benghazi has become pornographic. I think the way they flogged the Benghazi non-scandal, I think it's really very unfortunate on the right-hand side. But I think that, for instance, hip-hop. Hip-hop has done more damage to black and brown people than racism in the last 10 years. When you find the youngster, a Puerto Rican from the South Bronx or a black kid from Harlem, who has succeeded in life other than being the 1/10 of 1% that make it in the music business, that's been a success in life, walking around with his pants around his ass, and with visible tattoos, or it is this whole ethos. And I love Russell Simmons. He's a dear friend of mine. I admire his business acumen. At some point, those guys have to cop to the fact that by encouraging this distinctive culture that is removed from the mainstream, they have encouraged people to be so different from the mainstream that they can't participate other than, the racks in the garment center and those entry-level jobs. And I lament it. I really do. I think that it has been very destructive culturally.
There's so much to say about that. I mean, Geraldo, do you not understand that that's the whole point of multiculturalism? The whole point of multiculturalism is to not have every single group essentially become all one, and it's all this bland, vanilla, cookie cutter, same culture, same kind of music you listen to, same kind of way that you talk, same same interests, same hobbies, and all that stuff. No, the beauty of multiculturalism is that there are differences in different cultures, and as long as we're not talking about ones that are just flat out embracing criminality, then it's fine. So when you talk about hip-hop culture and it's, there are some kids who wear their jeans slightly lower and like to wear jewelry and be flashy and talk a certain way, that's not inherently worse or inherently evil. The whole purpose of multiculturalism and liberalism and tolerance is to accept benign differences. Do you understand that? That's very important. It means that you shouldn't just judge somebody based on the fact that they're different from the mainstream and use that as a reason to not give them a job or, not hire them or not treat them fairly. I mean, it's almost like, without even realizing it, Geraldo Rivera just made a case for soft bigotry, right? The idea that I lament hip-hop culture. Why? Because I don't like it. Well, then the problem is with you. The problem is with the people who think like you. The problem is not with people who want to embrace, different music that they listen to and different ways of dressing and different ways of talking. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that, hey, that means you need to accept cultures that aren't tolerant. I don't mean you tolerate intolerance. I mean you tolerate benign differences that shouldn't make you think in these strict ways about how they should be separate from the mainstream because they're not conforming enough. So I think that's an important point to make. It seems to me like he's never even considered that. That hasn't even crossed his mind. That just because something is different doesn't mean it's worse. He seems to have bought into that false dichotomy. And look, man, the idea that rap music has been worse for black people than racism, I mean, look, that's just ignorant. There's no other way around it. I mean, that's just a stupid thing to say. And why is it a stupid thing to say? Because of the plethora of studies we've gone over on this show, the ones that all you guys can probably recite back to me because I've mentioned them so many times. Black people and white people use drugs at similar rates. Blacks get arrested for it 4 to 6 times more often. There's nothing else to explain that other than racism. If a black person and a white person commit the same crime, a black person is much more likely to get the death penalty. There's no other way to describe that except racism. white people sell drugs more than black people do, but black people get arrested more for selling drugs. Again, no other way to explain that but racism. If you put a black name on a resume and a white name on a resume with the exact same information, the black name gets significantly less hits. Again, no other way to explain that. On eBay, the eBay study we always reference, how if you have a black hand selling an iPod and a white hand selling an iPod, all the other information the same, the white name gets way more hits. I mean, these things are serious issues. The only way to describe it is through the lens of racism. The great YouTube clip that went viral where a guy decided to do an experiment where he's a white kid and he wanted to break into his own car using one of those things that, the people use if you ever lock your keys in your car. They have this tool that they use where they break in, like, through the window to pop the lock open. And so he was doing it. Literally, a cop car drove by, didn't fucking blink, didn't look twice. You see this kid trying to break into a car. Everybody's just driving by. People are walking by acting like it's no problem because it's a little white kid. When his black friend did it, immediately people called the cops. The cops showed up and threw the guy against the wall and handcuffed him. Same exact thing. One person white, one person black. You see the way that they're treated differently. And then also, the average white family's net worth is over $110,000, and the average black family net worth is just $11,000. Now, at this point, it's hilarious because conservatives think that this proves their case. Like, see, they don't work as hard. You idiots! It's not that they are lazy or they chose to earn less money. That's directly related to inheritance. So do you know what that means? The previous generation, when your mother and father die in white families, they have a lot of money to hand down and more money to hand down and more property to hand down. Why? Because they had hundreds of years of a head start in society to earn money, to get good jobs, because they weren't systemically oppressed. Whereas black people, it was just the 1960s that they got full rights on paper. And even then, that doesn't mean that the rights manifest themselves in reality. And white people in the South all of a sudden loved black people in 1965, right? That's not the way it works. So literally, the grandfather generation, right? Like my grandfather, grandmother generation, like most of their life, it was segregation. And it was black people are officially second-class citizens. So that means black grandmothers and grandfathers, they were living under segregated societies. So how do you expect the one generation removed from them, right? All of a sudden they're supposed to be equal to white people in every way when it comes to net worth and when it comes to, advancement in society. It's not going to happen. It's like you had a 100-yard dash and white people dashed 80 yards, and then when white people are 80 yards ahead, then you fire the gun and let the black people start running. And then when they don't beat the white people, you go, tisk, tisk, I guess you're just genetically inferior. So look, man, Geraldo, you're just ignorant, and you didn't read the studies, and you don't know the information. You're totally unfamiliar with any of the nuanced arguments that prove racism, but yet you're slamming the idea of racism anyway. And who do you blame? Jay-Z and Fabulous instead.